Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the WisTech webinar number 2 for 2025. I'm very excited today about our topic on digital ethics and empowering autonomy. Welcome to Tiffany Wilson. We'll have her give a little more thorough introduction as she kicks off her session. But just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. So my name is Laura Plummer, and I am the statewide Assistive Technology Program Coordinator for Wisconsin. This webinar is brought to you from WisTech, Wisconsin's Assistive Technology Program, as well as Department of Health Services. And this is the webinar platform, so we will be recording this, and the recording will be archived on the WisTech YouTube channel. And this is, again, webinar platforms, so your microphones and your cameras are automatically off. We are encouraging you to use chat for some interaction. We also have Q&A available. We do have ASL interpreters and CART captioning available through the menu. And this webinar does provide free CEUs and CRCs. These will be accessed by taking the survey and answering a few short questions. You'll have 2 opportunities to take the survey. One was right when we close the webinar, you'll get a pop-up message asking if you'd like to take the survey. Otherwise, you will get an email reminder tomorrow, and you can take the survey at that time. And if you're interested in those CEUs and CRCs, you'll just answer the few questions and input your information. Those certificates are sent out within 30 days of the end of this webinar. I believe that is our housekeeping today. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Tiffany Wilson. And thank you so much for sharing this topic today. I enjoyed your session at ATIA in January or February, whichever month that happened to fall in this year. So appreciate your time today, and I will let you go ahead and take it away. Welcome.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, WisTech, for the opportunity to spend time with you all today to discuss the importance of digital ethics and empowering autonomy in this modern digital age. My name is Tiffany Wilson, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm the founder of Wilson Inclusive Solutions, or WINS, W-I-N-S. We specialize in accessibility consulting, assisting organizations to improve access to technology and improve their services for individuals with disabilities. I hold a degree in special education and bring over 15 years of experience in the disability support services and assistive technology field. I also spent nearly a decade as second in command in Alaska's federally funded AT program, similar to WisTech in Wisconsin. Now I focus full-time on consulting to bridge gaps to access. Through my work, I've seen how smart technology is changing lives, but I've also encountered complex situations where even well-intentioned support has caused unintended harm. And these experiences and scenarios inform today's session. I believe that the successful use of internet-based devices as assistive technology depends on establishing clear professional boundaries and boundaries that support privacy and support true independence and autonomy. You can follow along today. You can use the QR code. We also have the slides and handouts at changeaccess.com/slides. I'm gonna pop that in the chat for you real quick. Oh, and follow along. We have PowerPoint slides, PDF, so whatever version that you might need for access. Today we have some considerations and communication guidelines. The structure. So all brand names, trademarks, if I mention a product, it belongs to the respective owners. All opinions today are expressed my own, not WisTech's, not a former employer. If I mention a product or service, it's not endorsement. The strategies discussed today should be implemented at your own discretion. Regulations, policies, they vary state by state, organization by organization. Also, reminder, the session is being recorded, so please de-identify any examples and protect privacy if we get to case discussions or examples. For communication access, all styles are welcome and important. We value diverse perspectives and encourage thoughtful contributions. Questions will be addressed during the designated Q&A or discussion segments. I am not really great at monitoring the chat at the same time while I'm presenting, but I will take moments to check chat. And if you would like your questions answered, please make sure to put it in the Q&A so we'll see it at the end. And we'll also have discussion throughout. And Laura, I see you're unmuting. Did you have something to add?
This is Laura. I will be monitoring chat, so I'm happy to pop in if there's a relevant question, and it'll flow with what you're presenting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate the chat support. Okay, let's talk about learning objective. Excuse me. In this session, we'll unpack real-world privacy and boundary dilemmas that may arise when using internet-based assistive technology. We'll walk through structured and ethical decision-making scenarios, and hopefully by the end, you'll leave with foundational strategies to uphold strong digital ethics while respecting the autonomy of end users. Throughout the presentation, I'll refer to the people receiving your support as end users to emphasize their role as active technology users with agency and choice. I'm using a new presenter controller, so I think I've got it. So moving to the CRC Code of Ethics for rehabilitation counselors. The content aligns with several key sections of the Code of Ethics, and it will be covered throughout today's session. And here's a breakdown of the sections. Section B, confidentiality. We'll talk about privacy boundaries and HIPAA considerations. For Section C, advocacy, we'll explore digital self-determination and advocacy for digital choice. K, technology, we'll look at account management boundaries, technical support limitations, and a digital choice decision pathway to support you in understanding your role for tech support or not. So the central question today, keeping our objectives in mind and the content, when internet-based technology offers independence but demands privacy trade-offs, how do we ensure that end user autonomy is prioritized and protected? To talk about that, first we need to kind of understand the technology that we're using as assistive technology professionals and also in disability support services for individuals to be independent. Everyday smart devices are changing lives. They're providing new avenues to become independent. There are affordable and accessible off-the-shelf devices, smart assistants, cell phones, tablets. They're increasingly replacing specialized tools. And because of these off-the-shelf devices becoming more accessible, it makes it easier for individuals to purchase and then use independently. The slide shows a person potentially with mobility challenges controlling various smart devices in a home. It shows how common technology can replace expensive proprietary solutions. Examples here are a lamp, a vacuum, thermostat, there's a smart speaker. So these everyday technologies offer affordable and accessible solutions. They're changing lives. It enables someone to interact with their environment, and they're using it in ways that were once limited or more expensive, or they had to have specialized tools. A few examples of everyday tools being used for independence. Smart cameras, they can enable individuals with mobility challenges to check to see who's at the door, maybe interact with visitors. This can promote safety and independence. Tablets, maybe they support environmental control. They enable communication through speech communication apps, or maybe distance communication through sign language relay services. Smart assistants can help with memory, timekeeping, maybe offering visual descriptions. These can foster greater autonomy. What's powerful about these devices is that they're not just about convenience. They're about creating independence and connection from the individuals to people in their environment, and to be able to also access their environment independently. We're empowering people to engage with their environment with devices that were only possible through specialized tools in the past. So let's talk about digital autonomy. I believe it's a key part of ethical person-centered support when using internet-connected tools. Person-centered digital autonomy, it means treating digital spaces the same way or with the same respect for individual choice that we apply in care, in planning, and in supporting an individual's daily life. To do this, I believe we need to understand digital self-determination. This concept was first introduced by Dr. Jorn Linksfield. At its core, it means that people should have the ability to use and control their own technology in line with their preferences and needs. It shouldn't be controlled by someone else, and it shouldn't be established by someone else's assumptions or convenience. I believe in digital self-determination and building on person-centered principles to promote digital autonomy. And that's why I created the Digital Choice Framework. It builds on these established person-centered principles and centers on one core principle. End users must drive their own technology decisions. Support means assisting people to make informed choices, not taking over or using technology in ways that would limit their autonomy. This principle guides the strategies that we'll talk through and look at how implementing internet-based tools can be done in safe and ethical ways, and then also talk about some gray areas and potential scenarios that you might have faced. But first, let's talk about boundaries in digital spaces. Building on the idea of digital autonomy, let's talk about boundaries. They may be less physical, digital boundaries may be less visible than physical boundaries, but they're just as essential. Just like we respect someone's personal space in their home, we need to bring that same respect to their digital environment. Professional boundaries protect both end users and service providers. It helps ensure that support doesn't cross into control or overreach. Here's a few key areas we're going to focus on. Account ownership. End users or guardians, when appropriate, should always control accounts and login credentials. There should be professional separation. Never use your personal devices, accounts, phone numbers, financial information for tech setup. And you should maintain clear boundaries when purchasing technology. There can be blurred lines with purchases, subscriptions, account payments. And keep in mind, all of these boundaries have examples that I've observed in the real life. This has happened. We're going to talk about boundaries within technical roles, referring to qualified tech specialists, and understanding that supporting autonomy doesn't mean trying to solve every tech issue yourself. Even with best intentions, crossing these boundaries can lead to real harm, from creating dependency to exposing private information or potentially causing regulatory trouble. I've seen it happen. The key is boundaries aren't barriers, they're safeguards. They protect autonomy, they can reduce risk, and ensure that we can provide effective, respectful support in digital spaces. So before we go into each boundary and scenarios, I'm going to provide some context. And we have to go back to the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I know I have to talk about it. We might be tired of hearing about COVID, but a lot of issues cropped up during this time. And it was a time when everything changed. And these boundaries were created out of necessity. At the Assistive Technology Center I worked at in Alaska, we faced the urgent need to quickly distribute equipment across the state. And the geographic and connectivity challenges alone were very difficult and made equitable access to tech a very complex task, especially for vulnerable individuals in remote areas. Illustrated here, Alaska is so vast that it could cover the entire lower 8 of the 48 United States. It spans 2,400 miles from east to west and over 1,400 miles from north to south. So we were testing IoT devices and developing best practices, and we had to shift quickly from best practices and testing to rapidly distributing them. And there we encountered significant ethical dilemmas. How could I balance accessibility and ease of use with the need for privacy, security, and autonomy? The very boundaries I'm about to outline were developed from this experience, and it's my hope that they're crafted to promote self-determination while safeguarding privacy and autonomy. And so during this time, a pattern emerged. The pattern was a lack of digital literacy, both among service providers and disabled individuals. And this lack of digital literacy and that intersection often appeared closely connected to the unintended harm that can arise when deploying internet-based devices without proper safeguards. More about digital literacy and barriers, I believe that digital literacy is essential for individuals to fully benefit from internet-based assistive devices. Without it, especially those new to technology, they face significant barriers, including lack of training, limited internet access, difficulty navigating digital systems and devices. And these barriers contribute to a larger cycle of exclusion, and it particularly affecting older adults and individuals with disabilities. And in that, these individuals have a high rate of being economically disadvantaged. And, for an example of what we're facing globally, 26% of low-income individuals globally lacked reliable internet access in 2022. And from my experience, many assistive technology device recipients are encountering the digital world for the first time when we are providing these devices to them or buying these devices and distributing it out to them, and they may lack the necessary digital skills to succeed. I explore these challenges and related research further in my paper, The Unintended Harm of IoT Devices and Assistive Technology Distribution Programs. And I presented it at the 2024 IEE European Symposium on Security and Privacy. You can access the paper on the slide resource page in the link that I gave you. So I'm not going to go into those facts or go into those in depth, but we are going to focus on barriers and strategies to prevent further exclusion. And these barriers to digital literacy and access don't exist in isolation. There's a pattern. It's a cycle that I believe reinforces digital exclusion and limits access to opportunities that this technology offers. It's a vicious cycle. Low-income individuals with disabilities need assistive technology. And before, it used to be just to access the digital world, but now we're seeing that a lot of things are being required. You might have to fill out an application online. You might have to go online to set an appointment for the DMV. So if you're an individual with low income and you have a disability and you need AT to access the digital world, but then many assistive technology programs or equipment programs are funded by public funding that often require digital literacy to get a device. So if you need digital literacy and you need an assistive device, but then you can't afford it, and then you apply to the program, but then they require digital literacy, it creates this cycle of exclusion, and you may not be able to get your device. Or potentially not having digital literacy can increase the risk of harm when you receive devices from unethical providers, because you may not know what questions to ask or what potential harm may happen when they access your private and secure information. And it creates a self-reinforcing loop, one that deepens digital exclusion and limits individuals' autonomy, privacy, and long-term opportunity. The image here shows a circle of both, with one breaking away, symbolizing the effort to break free from this cycle. How do we break free from this cycle? I'm talking about it here with you today. So let's talk further about specific digital access gaps that I believe are contributing to this cycle. We talked about funding restrictions. They often lead to a focus on just providing devices without ensuring comprehensive access or digital literacy. As agencies, we're trying to do more with less. We're trying to get more devices out. And so if an individual who is blind, and maybe they need a tablet for a specific task, a lot of programs could only train on the visual aspect of that tablet. So that would be potentially voiceover, which would read everything on that tablet out loud. However, if that person lacked the digital literacy to understand what a tablet is, how to use a tablet, how to use a touchscreen before you even get to voiceover, they may be denied for these programs because they need a baseline of digital literacy to understand the tablet before they can receive the voiceover training. High costs of AT and broadband continue to block equitable access. Without adequate skills and trainings, People may struggle to use the devices they receive, which leads to frustration, device abandonment, maybe reduced independence. I believe to truly disrupt this cycle, we need to move beyond device distribution and move beyond basic web accessibility. I believe that real accessibility is holistic and it addresses the broader digital divide by ensuring reliable internet, access to appropriate technology, along with the digital skills required to use them. Effective use of internet-based technology hinges on digital literacy. This means not only equipping individuals with comprehensive training, but also preparing service providers to understand and support digital boundaries in ethical and informed ways. So let's talk about some common situations. I believe when digital boundaries aren't clearly defined or when digital literacy is lacking, even well-meaning support has the potential to cause unintended harm. So to better understand how these play out in real life, let's look at common situations where these challenges might surface. If your situation is not discussed, feel free to put it in the Q&A. Checking my time. I am doing well. Let's go. Okay. First, let's talk about digital account security and privacy. There are some major concerns that I have regarding account security and privacy, and these can arise when digital boundaries aren't clearly defined. And they often surface when individuals lack full control or awareness of their own digital accounts. I've seen firsthand how these problems emerge. And in many cases, external service providers unaffiliated with the AT center I was working at were involved in actions like creating accounts without the end user's knowledge or consent, setting up company or school accounts on end users' personal devices, merging personal and professional spaces, using protected health information without permission, violating privacy regulations and potentially laws. Also binding users to terms and conditions on accounts that they didn't have the opportunity to review or understand. These actions not only raise privacy and legal concerns, but they can severely undermine the autonomy in the digital space. Moreover, they expose individuals to unnecessary risks and harm. Account management. So one of the most common boundary challenges we encounter is account management. Many individuals with disabilities or older adults need assistance setting up accounts for smart home devices, apps, online services, and it is usually due to their limited digital literacy. However, creating accounts on behalf of others can lead to several issues. Unclear ownership. It becomes difficult to determine who owns and controls the account when changes need to be made. Privacy violations. Sensitive, personal, and financial information can be and has been mishandled. Dependency. Users can become reliant on support staff for access, and this reduces their autonomy. There's also loss of access. If a staff member leaves or the account becomes unavailable, users can lose access to essential services. For example, I was brought in to help resolve a case outside of my center, and a support professional had set up accounts for all of their clients. And when that staff member left the organization, many individuals lost access to critical assistive tools on their tablets because no one had the login information. The next critical area, let's talk about multi-factor authentication. And it is a security process that requires users to present two or more verification methods to access an account or system. And a common example is receiving a code through text message while you're trying to log into your account. So MFA, it plays an important role in protecting sensitive information, and it can also cause barriers. Many individuals who rely on assistive technology may need support with MFA, maybe if they have a physical disability, or maybe they do not have a cell phone or a phone that can receive the text message. So many AT recipients use tablet-based communication. So if they don't have a mobile or landline phone, but MFA is often required by platforms like Apple. So to use a tablet, you have to have an Apple ID. And to have an Apple ID, you have to use multi-factor authentication. So if I was giving a device to someone with a speech disability who was using the tablet for calling, they don't need a cell phone. Whose phone number goes on the tablet? Shouldn't be a care provider. And so we've seen staff's phone numbers being used. We've seen people not tell others about accounts. And there have been account lockouts, and users can become easily locked out of their accounts if they don't have access to their own MFA. There's privacy concerns when staff members use their own phone numbers. And there's risk that it ties the end user's device to someone else's account. These challenges highlight the importance of finding the right balance, securing accounts without compromising accessibility and autonomy. The next slide has a moving GIF or image, and it will play automatically when I click on it. I'm going to talk through the image as it plays and then cover it as I explain it. Excuse me. I just took a drink of water. Okay. So in this GIF, I'm holding a number and I'm moving my head side to side, up and down, and then I move the number up and down. And that was part of a facial verification process that I had to go through just to get back into my Facebook account. So even with a strong tech background, even being an assistive technology specialist, even setting up all of these accounts, strong tech background, I found myself stuck and locked out of my own account because of MFA. When I moved from Alaska to Oregon, I encountered a challenge I didn't expect because I was using a smaller provider that I could not port my phone number of 15 years, and it was tied to a lot of accounts. I was able to change my number a lot online, but Facebook would not let me change my number. I had access on my phone, and it wanted to text the old number for me to change it to the new number. I did a lot of things, despite being tech savvy, it wouldn't allow me to change it. I had access on my phone. I tried so many different ways. I sent customer service. I pleaded with Facebook. I searched forums. I even did the old school thing where you tweet at the agency to see if they'll respond, and nothing. Even going through regular customer service on my Facebook account, nothing. When I tweeted, I was met with bots and spam. I think my favorite was the lots of hackers that promised me if I sent them money and all my information, they would help me get access to my account. They probably could, but they probably got access to it first. I think my favorite was the friendly hacker that warned me about all the bad ones, all the bad black hat hackers out there. And so I went around the world pretty much to try and access my Facebook account. And in the end, I decided to pay for Meta's blue check verification to see if I would get a response. So I paid for it, got the blue check. My friends thought I was becoming an influencer, which is not the case, but I guess kind of when you start a small business. After becoming verified, I sent a request to customer service the same way I did the first time, and they responded. And then they requested that video that I showed you, and that gave them the facial verification to let me have access to my account. Didn't matter that I had already had access on my phone, didn't matter, they didn't give me any other way to do it. I had sent to customer service. So to summarize, to get access to my account, well, first I talked to a lot of different hackers, but I had to pay plus upload a facial recognition video. The experience was frustrating. It was expensive, but I had the technical knowledge and resources to push through it. Now imagine someone who doesn't. For people with disabilities, these barriers can become roadblocks. And platforms like Meta are beginning to integrate these VR headsets into assistive technology programs. What about the other devices that are taking eye tracking data? It raises new questions. When MFA requires video verification or complex steps, consider, what are we going to do when someone locks themselves out of their VR headset? There's discussions of implementing Meta headsets in senior homes, but these headsets have to be tied to a Facebook Meta account. The mobile device management system is new, and they're still figuring that out. So how comfortable would you be filming to help someone get into their account? And should we even assist with that? Let's talk about commercial accounts. Voice-enabled smart assistants like Alexa can support accessibility, but using them often comes with strings attached. Almost everything comes with an account requirement, but many of the smart speaker devices like Alexa require users to create commerce or shopping accounts. They're required just to get started, just to use the device. The setup process isn't optional. It's built in, and I believe it raises serious privacy and autonomy concerns. These accounts usually require personal details such as payment information, agreements to data tracking. For some users, especially older adults, privacy conscious or unfamiliar with online shopping, this goes far beyond what they expected for accessing a basic communication tool or assistive device. Let's talk about Bob and Sue, an elderly couple I supported. Bob was losing his vision and needed help setting up his new Alexa device. He loved it. It told him what time it was. He used it for many, many different things. And he was thrilled. But to activate it, they were required to create an Amazon account. They've never shopped online before. They were local folks who used a checkbook to go to the grocery store. We didn't recommend that he got an account, but we recommended the Alexa, and he chose that device based on trying different smart assistants. And we educated him about the commerce account, but he did not have a digital presence. What do? We supported them in a way to create the account themselves, but it brings a bigger question. Why are we asking people to trade privacy and access to financial information just to use assistive tech? And why aren't we demanding more from manufacturers who are promoting these devices as assistive devices and requesting that they be included in our programs? Let's talk about financial boundaries or requests that involve financial information. Many of these devices come with hidden costs, subscription fees, in-app purchases, or they require payment information just to activate basic features. And it creates a real risk of financial entanglement. Excuse me. I drank a cup of water. Okay. And this risk can be greater, especially if you're in a direct support role. So here are key things to keep in mind. Never share your personal or organizational payment methods. And yes, it has happened. And yes, sometimes you may be in the field, and you see a $2 app that could help somebody, and you figure, like, you know what, I'm just going to buy it. It's happened. And you're putting your financial information on somebody's device. You are also, the question is, are you undermining their independence by purchasing it for them? You know, is there other ways to support their self-determination and independence? And it's not black and white, but I really do believe that this one is never share your personal or organizational payment methods or put it on others' accounts. And that's different. You know, there's gift cards or other ways to purchase apps if a program's funding it, but there's appropriate ways to do it. And I see somebody says that they use Apple gift cards to help with purchasing, and we've done that too. That's a great way to do that. And it ties it to their Apple ID account, and they own it, and not you if you're not tying it to another account. So should have clear financial separation. Don't use your own information in accounts or on someone else's behalf. If an account is required, the individual or their legal representative should be the one creating it. You can assist, but it's their account. They own it. It's their information. And we should protect their private and financial information. And Laura's mentioning that Apple originally required a credit card before workarounds were developed, and she is correct. And that was fun in assistive technology. Now you can put no payment in there, but some people don't realize that. So purchases, charges, data agreements should stay with the appropriate party. And we should also be aware of long-term cost implications. You may not be responsible for recommending or selecting devices, but if your organization is funding them, it's worth understanding any ongoing financial commitments tied to their use. Or even thinking about if you say something in passing and say, oh, I heard about that really good organizational app. You should go try it. And, maybe that individual respects your opinion, but maybe they should actually go get a demonstration or try and compare different apps to determine what's for them. And we've seen someone just say something in passing and then not realizing it's tied to a year-long subscription and an ongoing payment. So we should also start thinking and keeping in mind the financial and ethical aspects of just mentioning tools that somebody should try. Even well-intentioned support can blur boundaries. And in some cases, it could violate organizational or policies or regulatory guidelines, or even create ethical gray areas. Let's talk about surveillance and monitoring. This one is really tough. Using smart home cameras and other monitoring devices in care settings, it raises serious ethical and legal concerns. I'm very, very concerned, especially about privacy, consent, and dignity. Many of these devices operate through cloud services that are not HIPAA compliant. And this further complicates privacy protections. Too many people believe it's acceptable to install smart home cameras to monitor people with disabilities and older adults without their consent. I received several requests and have talked to many folks about the implications of setting up smart cameras to monitor people. Let's talk about one example. A care facility and its leadership, this request went all the way to the top. They propose using cameras to monitor an individual with, quote, difficult behaviors. And they were prioritizing staff convenience over the person's rights. They wanted to know if the individual was going to, quote, have a bad day or not, and to assist the staff in knowing what to expect. They opted for surveillance without consent instead of exploring behavioral interventions, and I will always maintain that. They focused on monitoring, and they overlooked the person's privacy and dignity. We denied the request and received a complaint about it. So I am here teaching that using these cameras or other monitoring devices in these settings raises serious ethical concerns. Studies show that the ethical risks of surveillance in care settings studies show that there are ethical risks of surveillance in care settings. While some may find it acceptable in certain cases, it's essential to consider the long-term impact on digital autonomy and dignity, and to also understand the type of monitoring system that you're using. There are many states who have allowed cameras in some of their care settings, and they're starting to approve it. I think I can't remember what the number's up to. It's like 9 or 10. I'll have to get it. There's a social worker who's wrote about that. And there's also schools that are starting to allow cameras in these settings. I can see someone not even thinking about the implications and taking a smart home camera, setting it up, and putting it in the care setting. People have said, I'm going to get a smart home camera and put it in my mom's room, so I know if somebody's stealing. Do they ask mom? Privacy. Smart home devices capture personal information, especially cameras. They're capturing it, they're storing it, they're transmitting it. Apple Watches have health data. Some of the headsets track eye tracking. This is deeply personal information, and it's sent out in the cloud, and that means it lives on a device, company's server or computer data bank outside of the home. It is being transmitted. And these cloud services, most of them are not HIPAA compliant. They have information like voice recordings, activity patterns, health data. And they're on these third-party servers with minimal privacy protections. End users should maintain control and understand what devices capture their information and how that data is used. As we talk about privacy, we should consider the impact of HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and understand HIPAA and these devices. As we talked about, these devices often capture, store, transmit information, and this information may contain protected health information, or PHI. Did you know that HIPAA identifies 18 data elements as PHI? It includes more than just the medical diagnosis and the name. It covers locations, it covers date of birth, it covers a lot of different things. And just by removing a name or a diagnosis does not mean that you have not inadvertently relayed or transmitted protected health information. There's more than just a name that is covered. And so we should have key principles when we're working with these devices. Protected health information belongs to the end user, and they decide how it is used, what it is transmitted. So support staff should not have independent access to digital accounts for end users. End users or their legal guardians should control and set up account management. Let's talk about an example. This well-meaning service provider bought iPads for their clients. And they were a direct service provider. They thought they were being helpful by setting up Apple ID accounts on their end users' behalf without permission. They used protected health information from agency intake forms to create the accounts. Or it was implied because there was nowhere else for them to get this information to set up these accounts on their behalf. For them, it was a HIPAA violation and not good practice. It doesn't promote autonomy and independent account management. And they didn't tell them that these accounts were created. As support environments become increasingly digital, we need to think carefully about privacy. When in doubt, we should always err on the side of protecting end user privacy and consult with our agency policies and understand our state laws. Let's talk about tech support. Now, all of us may have varying tech support levels and understand how to aid someone with a device. And sometimes it is just as easy, like, I know how to do that, let me help you. But I would encourage you, before you provide tech support, to think through it. And it's important that we recognize the limits of our role, just like we do in other professional settings. And we understand what support we should be providing. With the increasing complexity of these digital environments, I know that there's pressure to solve problems that may go beyond our expertise or try to solve something that we might know. However, I believe that maintaining clear boundaries is imperative to protecting both yourself and supporting the end user. Here are some principles to keep in mind. We should know when to refer to specialists. It's okay to admit when an issue requires expertise outside of your scope. We should keep information with the end user. Protecting privacy means ensuring that sensitive data stays in their hands and not yours. They're creating the account. It's their account. It's their information. They own it. Digital self-determination and autonomy. And we should know our limits. Just because you can solve it doesn't mean it's part of your responsibility or your role. In many cases, it's better to connect individuals with the right resources than try to solve it yourself. For example, device manufacturers are prideful in the fact that they provide customer service for people with disabilities. There's places like Microsoft adding Be My Eyes, which is a tool for individuals who are blind, and they're using that for people to call directly through the app. For customer service for Microsoft, there are a lot of manufacturer-specific resources, and I believe that we should start encouraging digital literacy and assisting individuals to start becoming autonomous in learning how to access the resources to help them solve some of these technical challenges. There's also authorized repair locations. There's specialized accessibility helplines that I just talked about. People are adding in sign language lines, depending on the type of device. There is the wonderful WisTech here in Wisconsin. Your state assistive technology programs are a good referral source. So I encourage you to think also of autonomy and think also of resources. And it's not about not giving information or not supporting. It's supporting in a way that promotes autonomy and digital self-determination. Account ownership and digital portfolio management are fundamental to fostering autonomy and improving digital literacy. We should empower the individual by ensuring that they retain control of their accounts and data and understand the need for accounts and their purpose. Okay, we are
Tiffany, this is Laura.
good. Yes.
We haven't had too many comments, but one in there was from Pam Schutz, who said Wisconsin does not allow cameras in licensed care facilities. And then Anna Cliff is just sharing some of her frustrations when we try to empower individuals. They end up with the AI bots, or there's no phone number access, things like that. So I just wanted to share just a few comments that were coming through. And one thing that I always find interesting when I set up equipment, the the number of internet providers, number ISP providers that will set up Wi-Fi within someone's home, but never provide them the admin code, like for them to change their own password, in their routers and all of that. And so that autonomy even starts with the local provider that they have requested to get service from, who has not provided that information either.
You're right. Laura, thank you for those comments. I'll talk about each one. We have a lot of time, or I'm doing good on time. And thank you for those comments. And you're right. And I believe that this isn't just an issue that's impacting disability service providers. And, we're seeing it with the ISPs, go in and they'll just assume that the person will never learn, or they'll make assumptions about the person, and then make decisions for them. Even down to I got a brand new iPhone last year, and I was backing up my old one. And then while I was looking away, the salesperson added their app for the telco provider, and then accepted terms and conditions on my behalf. We had a lovely conversation about him agreeing to a potential legal agreement and going through those screens. And I, globally and, as a whole, I believe that we need a shift, a change in respect for digital rights and digital autonomy. And, I'm speaking about these in various areas. And regarding the ISP, one of the things that I did in Alaska was become a part of our Alaska Telephone Association, Telecom. And, that was also part of our other telecom programs. But doing that, I was able to connect with a lot of more high-level customer service folks and their regulatory folks. And we were able to have that relationship where I could provide that information, making sure that the individual has that password, or knowing that Wi-Fi password is on that router, and not making decisions for those individuals. And we had a little bit of success, but then it also was a little bit about grassroots, and meaning in the field, knowing those different communities and supporting them. Regarding bots, you're right. We are seeing the move to AI, and we are seeing that regular customer service have a lot more bots. But I would encourage all of you, for all of the companies that say that they have accessibility service lines and disability support service lines, to please use them and call them. And we will not see change until we're providing feedback and telling them how their services are working or not working. And unfortunately, I do see AI being a cost cutter. So we'll see, in the coming years, if the same folks are as dedicated to accessibility as they have been. Places like Microsoft and Amazon are going to our assistive technology conferences. If you're there, provide them feedback about digital autonomy and customer service and independence in setting up these accounts. And all we can do is keep talking about it and advocating for it. Regarding cameras, thank you for telling me about Wisconsin. In the paper that I wrote, I do reference a social worker who wrote about the laws and how she's been watching different states. They keep passing these laws where they're allowing cameras in care facilities. And when I was reading her paper, it was kind of alarming because it kept counting up. I got a version of her paper. I was like, oh, wait, this is a new one. So it went from like 8 to 9 to 10. And I'll have to get the current number. But that paper is in there, and it should have the current number and states, and her information to look up her current paper. So that's something we need to keep on the forefront and in our minds. Either if you see this law come to pass, or want to pass in your state, to advocate for privacy rights protections to go with it, or however you decide if you support it or not support it. People have made cases on where cameras can be appropriate. I am not so sure, and maybe it's a last resort, but that is why we're here today. We're talking about these topics, and that is a part of ethics. And sometimes there's not always a black and white scenario, but I'm happy to know about Wisconsin and their current, well, non-law, or they're not allowed. Okay, seeing no more comments. We're going to move into the scenarios section. It's going to be a guided interactive discussion. Feel free to ask questions and share your thoughts as we explore how to apply the boundaries we've covered. We'll save the official Q&A for the last QA slide. I'm going to move the chat over so I can monitor it. So, account management scenario. Maria, she received an Amazon Echo as a gift. She's excited. She's never created an online account before. She asks you, can you help set it up for me? I don't understand technical things. What would you do? Take a moment to think about it. Just think about it privately, type it in the chat. Would you A, set it up using your Amazon account and help her get started? B, create the Amazon account, do it in her name and give her the login. C, explain that you can't set it up, but connect her with Amazon or other resources for digital literacy or possibly even an AT program. D, tell her she shouldn't use technology she doesn't understand. We've got a lot of C's. Somebody, I like the question, who is Maria to me? Thank you for that question. Yes, I did keep it generic. How about if you're a rehab counselor, rehab provider, maybe it is your client, or maybe you're a direct service provider. And somebody said that they would probably walk her through the process sitting next to her. That is a possibility depending on your role and if you've been trained in that. The best answer, I believe, is C, and connecting Maria with resources to maintain boundaries while still providing support. A and B can cross boundaries by controlling account creation, and D dismisses her autonomy and interest in technology. C may still walk through process with Maria, especially if there's a hearing barrier. That's a good point. So for those who have said that they would assist Maria in setting up the account, how would you, one, I want you to consider, is it your role within your current job framework? Two, and it might be, and two, if it is, how would you protect that financial information that's going to be required to enter into the Amazon account? Pam says she finds tech support people are often foreign with a heavy accent, can make it difficult to understand them. So what's another option? And do we have anyone that wants to take a stab at keeping information private, the financial information, if you're assisting? I just saw a hand. Let me see if I can go back to that. Let me open the participants. Oh, here it is over here. Don't believe I see a hand up anymore. Okay. You could step out of the room while they're entering financial information. Okay. What if they have a physical mobility challenge? Laura says, ask Maria's daughter to help instead. If available, a natural support. That's a good one. Did you ask Maria consent before you talked to her daughter? Yes, she referred her mom. Okay. And Laura, by the way, I know Laura is always great about all of that. And we had talked about releases and everything. I am just throwing out ethical scenarios. So sometimes in these situations, there may not be a black and white clear-cut path, especially depending on your role. And what I want you to do is stop and question first and think about it before just hopping in and helping somebody set up. Because we're balancing someone's independence and digital autonomy, their privacy, and their access. And I say we're balancing, but we're considering, and that self-determination should always be with the individual. Self-determination and ownership. All right, let's go to the next one. We have time for field experience questions, any examples or account management questions that you want to share or discuss with the group. Remember to keep them general or de-identified. And if there, I'll give just a couple seconds. And if there aren't any, I'll move to the next scenario.
And Tiffany, this is Laura. We do have in the Q&A,
Okay.
we've got, I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it live. An anonymous attendee shared that my mom used to lock herself out of accounts constantly and then call me to get back in. She had some cognitive issues with complicated things. I lived an hour away, so I couldn't just pop over. I am still wondering how you handle these type of issues and still allow the individual autonomy. And I can I just can share what I've done with my mother-in-law and my mom or my parents when they were alive. For my parents, especially the cell phone account, we added me as an admin years before we needed to, which I put in the chat earlier. It allowed us to retain his phone, which we needed for multi-factor authentication for about a year and a half after he died. We needed that phone and that number in order to get into all sorts of accounts due to MFA. The other thing that I do is, it used to be on paper because my mother-in-law would write it on paper and give me a copy. She loved her printer. She would print all of her passwords out and give me a copy. And my mom did the same thing. And then with having siblings, I just put them all in Google Drive so we could all have access. So that's one thing that I did when someone would forget. I would be able to actually assist because I had that. I didn't have to physically be there. So I could, my mom called, say, this is what that password is, and read it back to her so she could work through that scenario.
So to summarize, so this is you were the natural support. You were the family member. And then you had consent and discussion with your family members, and they agreed to add you as an admin. And thank you for the point of needing that cell phone and sharing your story on how that MFA also was required. So, in this, you're right, there are times in our lives that we do support individuals with their accounts, and you know, maybe that and that individual has agreed. What we should also consider is looking at these devices and how they're made, and how we set it up, and um, making sure the person understands what you're doing. And, you know, this is separate maybe from if you're a guardian and maybe the individual has dementia, and but you are designated there as their support to make those decisions. But I am seeing younger folks get frustrated with parents who were never taught anything. And yes, you know, we can also teach ourselves, but sometimes decisions are being made like, Mom, I bought you this grandma call software, and this means, but not telling them that that means that they can just drop in anytime and call, or not tell them that it means that they can control their computer, and not tell them that it means that they control their TV. Where I think that that access is important. And, you know, even as an AT specialist, and I was trained in ethics, I, you know, we've added tools like login software, you know, with somebody's permission, but it also are tools that are created for tech support people to log in and have access to for a limited time, and then teaching people how to use those tools and also disconnect us. And so logging in remotely may not inherently be bad, but if we have bad actors or these open doorways, we also need to consider the privacy aspects of that. And is it ease of use and convenience? Or is it true support and supporting autonomy? And, you know, there are no right or wrong answers. And I'm very, very glad for these examples. See, we have someone coming in the chat. Has anyone used separate security keys for individuals to use? I've seen the problem during an iPad setup process instead of the dual factor authentication option, but have not tried it. Is it a physical tool that can be used? Two-factor authentication security key. I believe, are you talking about when using an authenticator app? Ah, we got a link. If it's, let's see, let me see if I can. Says it's an Amazon. And I'm not sure what the link is. It's giving me a CAPTCHA where I should verify and type the characters that see in the image. So I'm not going to do that. But Laura's holding like a keychain to a, like banks sometimes use those with authenticators.
Yes.
They
So this is the link that Anna shared. This is Laura.
Okay.
This is a YubiKey.
Okay.
I'll speak nicely of it. It's not an enjoyable tool to use. But it is what the Department of Health Services, the state of Wisconsin, uses in our laptops. So I have, whenever my multi-factor involves entering my username, my password, and then I have to physically put this key into my into my drive, or use the near field reader on my phone. and then enter a code that is generated. The code expires every 20 seconds. And so you have to be physically able to do all of the above,
Okay.
quick enough to do all of the above.
Okay.
Um, so it is not an ideal solution for anyone that has a physical limitation, even just arthritis, or has a vision loss. But this is what she was showing, is this little physical key.
And is it a generic tool that you can buy off of Amazon? Is that what the Amazon link was for?
The link was for that, yeah, but you'd need, I mean, this, I don't know how it would work as a personally set up device.
Okay.
I'm not familiar
I
with that.
will, I'll take a look. In my experience, a lot of the devices like that, but I haven't used that particular one. They're tied to, like, you still have to create an account, or they're tied to a specific account or a bank or a company. There are also like password managers. But that's a little bit different from multi-factor. I'll have to take a look, because it could be a tool. And it's just like we do in assistive technology assessments. We look at all the different tools and compare and contrast and assist that individual with what might be appropriate for them. And so I'm glad the tool was brought up. And then it was really great to have Laura compare and contrast the features and kind of talk about it, because in ethics and in digital autonomy, nothing is going to be black and white. And sometimes we say it depends, and a tool for one person may work and it may not work for the other. But I'm definitely going to look into that device. But I'd also be curious to see, like, how it would interact with Apple, when the way in the beginning, when it asks you to set up the device, you have to enter your Apple ID immediately or create one, and then it sends you a text to the phone number you enter. So I'll have to kind of research that process and take a look. And if anybody's done it, feel free to send me an email. So Laura's saying that her husband would be able to use it and put it into his computer and tell her the code.
I
And
highly
so
doubt it. I highly
we're
doubt it.
doubtful that it could be used for that process. Okay. Okay. But that is good to know that it could potentially be an option in a health environment, but that's a whole other story about having an iPad in a Department of Health environment. Thank you, Anna, for that discussion. Okay, let's talk about another boundary scenario. Robert's family wants to install a camera in his bedroom to keep an eye on him at night. They ask for your help setting it up. Or perhaps if you're a counselor or a care coordinator overseeing a plan, or a case manager, maybe they've asked you to include it in the plan. They said the direct service provider can set it up. They're tech savvy. Robert hasn't expressed an opinion. What do you do? Think about your answer. Type in the chat. You write it into the plan, or you install the camera as requested. Family knows best, right? You connect them with AT specialists or experts who can explore appropriate monitoring options, or compare and contrast other devices. Install the camera, but position it discreetly to protect privacy, and write that into the plan. Tell them it's not your problem and they need to figure it out themselves, because you want nothing to do with camera monitoring. Awesome, we got a lot of B's. Yes, I believe the best choice is B. And connecting the family with professionals ensures that privacy and autonomy, along with appropriate safeguards, are considered, without putting you in the position of making that judgment call alone, or potentially violating privacy, security, and HIPAA regulations. And Laura gives us a good reminder that the industry is filled with vendors, Make sure your experts are not vendors. I'm going to clap, wave my hands, emphasize that. And I definitely believe that for almost all of the AT, if you're able to find a non-biased expert like the Assistive Technology Center who compares and contrasts and talks about all your options, then that's better than talking to a biased vendor who wants to sell a product. And sometimes these vendors will promise a lot of things and it may not be true. Do you have a recommendation on how to tell if someone's a vendor? If they work for that company. So, for example, going to the Assistive Technology Conference, and Laura and I go to the one in Florida. We've gone to the one in Florida, and they all sell their devices, but they're telling you this camera is awesome. We use it for remote monitoring. For this situation, you should get it, and it meets all criteria. And yes, I like Laura's example. Do they sell things? Yes or no? Yes. And if they tell you that they work for a device company, then yes. So with these options, A and C involve setting up surveillance without Robert's consent, and I believe it crosses ethical boundaries. And D, while it draws a boundary, is overly dismissive and not supportive of that digital autonomy. Now we've got discussion time. Any examples or privacy questions to share? I'll give it just a second, see if there's any discussions that spurred before we move forward. Take a drink of water.
This is Laura, and Anna's just also supporting, do they sell things, yes or no? But keep in mind, there are AT professionals that do straddle that line between neutrality and doing assessments, and also selling or providing the devices. I think I'll put the link in, but WisTech has developed our best practices for assessments and vendors that supports that emphasis on neutrality. And selling doesn't make that person bad or don't use them, but are they transparent in the fact that I represent this product, so I am going to possibly have it as a recommendation, but here are your alternatives as well. So are they transparent about, or is it, you got to have my product, this is the best one?
Thank you, Laura. I have nothing to add to that, and that is excellent. And Anna also added the comment that some people have additional credentials, and it's okay to look up licensures too. And Sarah says, I'm concerned about people living with dementia and their ability to understand and also remember that they agreed to AI devices in their homes. Sarah, I am too. And what else? So how else is this person's care set up? And, if the person has a guardian, do they have the individual's best interests in mind? Can they make those decisions? What is your role? Are you an advocate? What are you advocating for? And I, 2 weeks ago, I went to the world's largest cybersecurity conference, about 45,000 attendees. And they're already talking about next generation AI and the scams and all the tech that's coming out, the breaches that are happening, tech's being created so fast. And, they scared me pretty good. But, what I came away from it is that, tech is always going to be created, and sometimes these risks and these ethical situations may not even come to the forefront unless we're talking about them and we're talking about digital autonomy and the ethics of it. So, if I were a part of an initiative that said we want to use this AI with dementia patients, I would understand the privacy practices and policies of that software. Are they GDPR compliant? Are they HIPAA compliant? How are they protecting the information? Where is it stored? What type of information is being collected? And, is the guardian, making the decision that the AI has a limited information and that the benefit outweighs the exchange of data? And the question is, but as service providers, should we be recommending these tools? And if we're assistive technology specialists, are we researching these tools? What data is being transmitted? And so the best thing as a service provider that I can do is recommend devices and tools that I feel have great safeguards in place. Also educate the guardian of what information is being transmitted so that decision maker or natural support has that information. And Sarah says, we have home care companies using Cincy AI technology for people with dementia living alone, which can be helpful to maintain independence, but also questionable on many levels. Thank you for the name of the company. I am going to do my research. And sometimes what I also do is when I come across technology like this, especially there's a lot of the help grandma tech and software that aren't considering that grandma may not want you to just call her up and drop in. I don't know about you. I don't want to have a kid that can just drop into my house with a piece of technology when I get older. And I don't want them making that decision for me either. And anytime I see a technology like that advertised, I send them an email and ask for their privacy practices. How are they protecting end users? And, sometimes I get really great responses. We follow the European guidelines, which are a little bit stricter. We have these privacy things in place. Sometimes they're just like, oh, we haven't thought about that. And so, it's up to us to make sure that we're educated and understanding if we're recommending a piece of technology, if we're telling the state to purchase a piece of technology or putting it under DD funding or this or that funding, we should absolutely understand the privacy implications of these devices and encourage autonomy and have privacy protections in place. Okay, thank you for that discussion. And new piece of technology I'm going to research. Financial boundaries. Can you help me set up my account and figure out how to pay for apps on my iPad? And this is in a professional scenario. What would you do? Maybe James is starting school on Monday and he just needs these apps and he needs it to start school. You set up the account using his credit card information. It's his. You connect him with appropriate resources or support to help him set up the account and manage payments. You create the account for him and tell him to add the payment later. Use your own card to get him started until he can update it. We've got a lot of Bs, and I agree that the best choice in this situation is B. And we support James by connecting him to the right resources without accessing or crossing financial boundaries. A and C involve managing or storing someone else's financial data, and it puts both parties at risk. D creates a personal financial tie that's not appropriate, even with good intentions. Do you have any examples or financial boundary questions to share? Drink a glass of water. Okay, I'm going to move on. Tech support. Susan forgot her email password. You're probably tired of forgetting it. Can you create a new account for me and keep the password in case I forget again? What would you do? Do you create the account? Store the password securely? Maybe you can put it in a file that other people have access to. You create the account and you have her store the password. C, maybe you recommend specific password solutions like an app or writing it down. D, you connect her with resources or supports. We've got D's, we've got a C and D. Laura says every person in Wisconsin just wants to use Packers for their password, literally. I wonder if New Orleans folks use Saints. I'm Saints fan. Okay, D. I believe that the best choice is D if you're not comparing and contrasting password options or a technology professional in this person's life. It supports Susan without crossing professional boundaries, and you're connecting her with appropriate resources to help ensure she gets long-term support while ensuring independence. A and B can cross boundaries by taking control of the account and sensitive information. C may seem helpful, but consider this: making specific technical recommendations, especially without fully understanding someone's needs, can also be risky. For example, many service providers once recommended the password app LastPass. LastPass. In 2022, LastPass experienced a major privacy breach. The question we should ask: can we be held accountable for recommending a tool that later becomes insecure? Maybe not directly, but ethically. And these are the digital risks and responsibilities we need to consider. And maybe an app is not the best tool for this person. Maybe it's a password book. I'm going to go to the chat. Let's see. It looks like I forgot my field experience slide, so we'll just leave it on this slide as we chat. One of our local libraries has created password cards for the patrons to write down their information and keep with them for reference as needed. That's a great tool. Librarians also always with the resources. Anna Sometimes I find it hard that the time to get those additional resources and supports leads to loss of interest in the tool. I can see that. So from a direct service provider and a case manager standpoint, if we're coming at it from that angle, not saying that that's your role. I'm going to talk about different roles and show this not always black and white. But if we're coming at it from that angle, we have to be really, really careful not to make specific tool recommendations because you have to it's better for that person's long-term success to identify the right tool and an app. And Pam says any cybersecurity person would tell you never to write your own passwords down. You're right. And we had a conversation about that at the cybersecurity conference, and talking about older adults and digital literacy. And sometimes, in some cases, for some individuals, it was the best option for them. And so it just shows that it's not black and white, and the cybersecurity folks will say you should always have a password on your device. But sometimes a person with a physical mobility challenge may not be able to type that password into their device, or the facial recognition is not working. And so sometimes they might have open access to the device. And then that person, though, gets to decide the risk that they're taking, leaving their device open. They get educated about how, if you leave the password off, this is the potential for a breach or lack of security. And, so there is not going to be a right or wrong answer from writing it down to an app. But if we're in that direct service and we're not a technology specialist, maybe we shouldn't be recommending tools. From an assistive technology point of view, you're right about loss of interest in the tool. That could happen, but there's also, I believe that there's a great stage of digital literacy and a time to talk about why it's important to have the things in the tool, or why it's important to make the decisions that we're making about our privacy, and empower those end users to make their own decisions on these accounts. And when you have to involve end users, guardians and other supports, it does take longer. And that was one of our criticisms, was that it took us too long to get some assistive technology out. But there were ethical lines that we drew in the sand, that we were not going to make any account management decisions for other people. So I usually go for empowerment and education first, if I'm able, and then move to the natural supports and guardians. But again, it always depends. There's always different makeups of folks and different people who don't have natural supports in their lives. And that's when it comes down to that specific person, what they need, feature matching, and just always protecting their privacy and empowering their autonomy. Laura says, I help out an older friend routinely. He always had a little spiral notebook, which some Verizon expert, quote unquote, told him to toss, since all his passwords were now saved in his phone. And I'm betting that he was probably pretty successful and was told not to use a tool that was already successful for him. So this is also a good example of, if we're in these support roles, a direct service provider, case manager, rehab counselor, that we also kind of understand, we be careful about our influence when we talk about technology and say things in passing. It is my hope that after we've explored the boundary issues and privacy concerns, that we look at that bigger picture and your role supporting digital choice. And within the digital choice framework, I believe your role as providers is to champion digital autonomy, avoid controlling decisions, empower others to take ownership of their tech. And I hope you are, or now you are on your way to becoming digital choice advocates. It means you promote technological self-determination and autonomy, along with privacy protections and assistive technology use. Remember, the goal isn't to prevent technology or adoption or to say that this one specific thing is what should happen. It's to support ethical technology use and implementation. It's to support digital autonomy while maintaining the right boundaries. And to help you apply these ideas in real-time situations, we created a practical tool called the Digital Choice Decision Pathway. It's in the handouts at the link, thechangeaccess.com/slides. I'm not going to go into all the details for sake of time. And in summary, it assists you in evaluating if tech support requests from end users can cause professional boundary crossings. It guides you through steps with considerations about account creation, device sharing, financial handling, and information access. It's not comprehensive, it's a simple tool. And with anything in ethics, there can be things that are gray. It's more about helping you find the right way to say yes or support while respecting boundaries and supporting digital autonomy. As we wrap up, remember, let's support technology use that respect privacy, autonomy, and choice. By maintaining clear boundaries, connecting people to right resources, championing digital autonomy, you help create a safer, more empowering experience. Thank you for being a part of this conversation and for committing to thoughtful, ethical digital support. So we are now in our question phase. Your communication and questions are important to us. We offer two ways to ask questions. We're going to go through the Q&A, and then you can ask live if you require alternative to text-based communication. We'll rotate between the methods. If you would like to ask a question live, please raise your hand and wait for approval raise your hand using the Zoom tool. Keep your question brief and allow time for processing. You can find my contact information by using the QR code or going to pxl.to/Tiffany, and I will put that in and turn it over to Laura, and we'll do some questions.
Great, thank you. This is Laura. So I wanted to open it up for questions here. We do have a few minutes. Any thoughts, questions, examples, or anything that folks would like to share? We do have a few minutes here. I think that this was very thought-provoking. And I just never tire of discussing kind of those ins and outs of all these scenarios that we all encounter in the work that we do. Because there's a lot of it depends when we're having these discussions.
Yes, Laura, and thank you for all of the discussions that we've had over the years, when we encountered these scenarios. And I'm grateful that you invited me today so we can continue talking like this.
And I like to remind people too that this is an area of growth. So, if I look back and think, oh, wow, I remember setting iPad passwords up for people, and, we'd write them down, we'd put them in their file. And so as our world evolves, we all stand to gain more knowledge and grow in the way we're providing services. And then if you could put the chat or the link to your slides again in the chat in case anyone joined later. And I see a couple comments, helpful presentation, thank you. Send a link to the digital choice pathway, which I believe you said is in the handout.
Yes, it can be found at the slides link that I just put there, and I'll just go and say it's called the Digital Choice Framework PDF.
And Anna worked in the schools previous to her current role, and so that was a whole other password access issue.
Oh, yes.
All right. So yeah, we've got a lot of great thank yous, and I think people are really going to put this information to good use. So thank you so much, Tiffany. It was awesome to like randomly connect at the conference earlier this year, and then get you on board to do one of our webinars. Our next webinar will be on June 10th, and it will be from the 10 a.m. to noon. And this is going to be hearing from a panel regarding providing services to tribal members with disabilities. So, and our next two after that are in September, one on assistive technology for mental health, and then one actually on digital literacy, AI, and with more of the focus of training the volunteers that work on literacy access. Because they have that opportunity as they're teaching people to read and write, they can build in that digital literacy as well. So this is being recorded. It will be archived on the WisTech YouTube channel. When we close the webinar, you will see a survey pop up. We welcome your feedback, and I will be sharing that with our speaker once all those are completed. At the very end of that, if you're interested in CRC credit or CEUs, there'll be 3 short questions, and then you'll complete your information. And within 30 days, you will get your certificate. So if it's after 30 days, if it's after June 13th, then you can email me and ask where your CRC or CEU certificate is. I like to give people time to get that completed. But other than that, thank you so much again, Tiffany, and look forward to future connections. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Laura, and everyone.